So we got another short battle on our hands this time. Street Sweeper 2 versus Trainer. This one's going to get a little confusing because Street Sweeper 2 goes up against Trainer and Trainer Bot later on. So this is the one where it's strictly Trainer from West Bend High School. If you want to see the Germantown one, make sure you look up Trainer Bot because that's that one. This fight ended in a tap out, or not a tap out, but a 10 count again, which, like I keep saying, it should just be a tap out at that point when you're getting down to maybe 4 and you just know oh, it's not moving at all. There's nothing we can do here for the last 3. So Street Sweeper 2, I don't remember the first version, and I don't remember it being pink.
I remember the name. That was the first time that Octavius Mark II. So that would have been end of my junior year. And there were a lot of cool bots at that competition and a fair number of rather unremarkable bots as well. But that's a pretty long time in between Mark 1 and Mark 2.
Yeah.
And assuming I remember correctly, there were 2 at that competition. Assuming I'm remembering the right bot, A-Team and Street Sweeper that were very similar to each other.
Yeah.
From different schools, but you could have slapped the paint job from one onto the other.
And it would have made a difference.
Noticed. But it was pretty boxy. Then it had 2 solid weapon paddles in the front. Then a pretty low power motor spinning behind them. And I wonder what they saw in that robot. And again, this is from Watertown.
Yeah, it seemed like Watertown brought Superbot, and I think they may have had one other good one. And then they brought MGK and Street Sweeper 2, where it's like...
Maybe they should have,
Are you trying to be the next Germantown here? Or?
Yeah, I think that they probably should have focused on maybe not so much quantity as much quality. I mean, Superbot, definitely very good. But MGK and Street Sweeper 2, I mean...
You could have combined those bots together, and it would have been a better bot than both of them.
I don't know, because... I mean, usually if you tag a Mark II onto something...
It's an improvement to the first.
Which...
This seems a lot like it's just the first, but with a pink paint job.
And it's round now instead of boxy.
Yeah.
I don't know, there are just some bots that I don't think are especially worth revisiting. Granted, I can't say too much because I almost did an Invictus Mark II.
Demosphere doesn't need one either. I tried to do a cough and then keep going and talking about it, but Demosphere, yeah, there was no reason for us to do a Mark II of it. We just knew, yeah, we don't want to go down that route again.
But, I don't know, what really kind of baffles me that some teams do is they'll come to the competitions, like with Street Sweeper, they'll see what goes on, and then they don't really seem to learn all that much from it.
Yeah, a lot of these bots competitions are learning experiences. You look at Comet, and you can see, oh, it's kind of like Octavius, who someone here actually designed.
Who was that? Oh yeah, that was me.
Yeah. For a lot of the times, Germantown, I think within the past 4 years has really kind of rubbed off on some of these schools and given them really cool ideas for bots. And I feel like...
There are a lot more wedges out there now.
Yeah, I feel like...
Not necessarily, I should say, not necessarily wedges, just at the beginning when I started off, people did weapon bots. Now they do weapon bots and there's a ramp at the back. I'd like to think that I'm at least partially responsible for that.
Yeah. And I do think that, Germantown had a huge influence on all these other bots, but what I'm seeing from these competitions is they're not really giving us any influences either, besides naming a bot something. Trainer and Trainer bot. I really do think that, maybe that's what they were trying to do with Street Sweeper or even MGK, even though MGK would be a terrible example of one, where they tried to do something different that Germantown wasn't doing, and trying to make it catch on, but it just didn't work the way that they probably wanted to.
Yeah. The biggest problem, it's underpowered weapon motors and poor drivetrain design. I mean, MGK had the mobility of a drunken toddler.
Yeah.
Then this one, it seemed to be able to move okay until it stopped moving.
Again, Trainer did a good job this fight.
Another really good hit against Trainer.
Yeah.
In the beginning.
I don't know what it is with Trainer, but they always get a good starting hit, and then they keep kind of pushing
Trainer
into
wipes the floor with them.
Yeah. And I gotta admit, Street Sweeper is not one of my favorites. It's not one of the most memorable bots. Memorable, whatever it is. As you guys know, I can clearly not speak English. I speak 50-isms. But, it's one of those things where, they're trying something at least that, everyone hasn't tried yet, and I gotta give them props for that. Sure, their bot may not be as memorable as they wanted it to, but at least, they did kind of bring back maybe one of their favorites, I don't know, and tried to do well with it. And it seemed to do pretty okay for the first couple pieces of it.
Mobility definitely wasn't an issue for Street Sweeper 2.
I think that their weapon had the same problem like what the girls bot did with To Be Determined, where it took a while to start it up, and then once it got hit by something, it would slow down and stop.
Yeah, not even necessarily that. The mistake, I don't know if it's a mistake or if it's just not enough funding to do it, but what a lot of like Street Sweeper and those sorts of teams will do is they will use brushed motors rather than brushless for their weapons, which brushed motors tend to have a fairly decent amount of torque. I'm just speaking from my experience, so I could very well be wrong, but the brushed motors typically have a decent amount of torque and pretty low RPM, but that's only after you gear them down. I mean, the brushed motors that Germantown uses for their drive systems get a 26-to-1 gear down on them, so they have a good amount of torque, but they still have the speed. What a lot of these schools do is they use the lower powered brushed motors, and then they don't gear them down all that much. So they don't have very much RPM to begin with, and gearing it down for the torque decreases your RPM. On top of that, and with the lower gear downs, you don't get a lot of torque out of it either. So it's just a slow moving weapon that will stop as soon as it hits something.
Yeah. And I wonder, with MGK, did they accidentally put those motors in instead of the drive motors? Maybe that's why it was moving so slow or whatever. Who knows? Maybe it was supposed to be one of the fastest, biggest bots alive, and
They
just didn't put in the right motors.
They got the biggest part.
Yeah. Just the fastest part wasn't there.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm really getting annoyed with some of these 10 counts. I get why it's there, but it's just after so many of them being, can you move, 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 can you move? It's like, just give us the tap out already.
Yeah, and ordinarily in a competition where you hear, oh, there are just so many 10 counts, you'd think, oh man, tons of weapons, people are getting like technical knocked out or something like that, but this it's just they're not just working.
Yeah. So I think that's all I gotta say on this fight. So we'll see you in the next one.